I'm going to give you 10 tips to dominate League of Legends on DraftKings, and we're starting right now. What's up, guys? Joe Holka here. Welcome to another daily fantasy sports and betting video. If this is your first time here and you want to become a profitable DraftKings player and get better at betting, start now by subscribing to the channel. Make sure you click that notification bell so you don't miss anything along the way. And if you're already a Holkamaniac, you know what to do. Smash that like button and we'll get started. The first tip I have for you guys for League of Legends on DraftKings is that game selection should be slate specific. Question from Jordan in the chat was asking, like, are all the same teams in all the slates? Like, how do the slates on DraftKings specifically, like, how does it even differ?
So during the week, the European and North American slates are only on the weekends. That's the only time they play.
Okay.
And when they play, you're going to get the same teams on every slate. There's 10 teams. They have 5 games on Saturday, 5 games on Sunday, and all the same teams play.
Okay.
With China and Korea, they happen throughout the week, and it's usually 2 or 3 games a night. So you'll get some teams you might get a slate that's like 2 Chinese games, 2 Korean games, and you have to decide where you want to go from those 8 teams.
Got it. So like I assume like the prize pools are still growing. They're probably relatively small. So like before we get into kind of more the intricacies of what actual points are scored for, like what's your game selection like? Are you playing mostly cash games? I assume that is it difficult even to get a decent amount of action down? I know a lot of the other kind of niche stuff we've talked about, like it's tough to even get like a ton of action down.
Yeah, I don't think you'd say you can get a ton of action. So when I first started playing for like the first couple of years, I never played a cash game. I just played all the tournament, all the GPPs every night.
Yeah.
Only like the last year and a bit have I started playing cash. You can get, if you enter all the heads up levels and enter all the GPPs, you can probably get $3,500 worth of action every night, roughly.
That's reasonable.
Yeah, it's not fantastic, though, the way you can do it in NBA or whatever, but it's still, you can make a couple thousand dollars a slate, no problem. If you have a really good night, you can make 4,000 or 5,000.
Yeah, I think so. So similar to almost like, so a lot of people in our chat have played some NBA tiers, have played like some NHL showdown type stuff. Like those are 2 of my favorite niche games to play. And similarly, like in NHL showdown, I've had more success just running a train in some of these contests that have like a smaller prize pool, because like even getting the top combination, it's not a big prize up top, right? For me, it's like, what can I do to actually take out like a big chunk of this prize pool? So are you running multiple lineups? Are you doing trains in some of these contests? Like what's your approach there?
So initially, I just ran the same lineup in every GPP that I played, and I still mostly do that. The way that League DFS is structured, you can actually usually play GPP lineups in cash. You don't necessarily want to do it every night, but you can do that most of the time. You could play one lineup and everything if you wanted. Usually what I'll do is have one lineup in all my cash, one lineup that's my main GPP lineup, and then in 1 or 2 GPPs, I'll put in like a pivot lineup just in case things go wrong with that main one.
Yeah, that's how I kind of feel about NHL at the moment. Like especially in tiers, there's just people that are just making crazy mistakes that it's totally fine to throw what your cash team is in GPPs. By the way, guys, if you've ever found value in any of my videos or live streams, one of the best ways to support what I'm doing here for free is to throw me the follow over on Twitter. And if you're new to the community, I also do a ton of content over on IGTV. So take a few seconds, follow me over on Instagram. I would really appreciate it. The second tip I have for you guys on League of Legends on DraftKings is that cash games honestly can be just as soft at the high stakes. H Buddha in the chat gifting a tier 1 sub. Appreciate you, man. He was saying that he was a negative 82.63% ROI in esports last year. So I would assume you probably scooped up a decent amount of that action, man. You should probably apologize to him.
I appreciate you there, Buddha. There is a group at the top of esports that is about like 3 or 4 guys every year. It's changed every year that I've played, but there's 3 or 4 guys every year that do very well. And it's similar to most other sports, is if you look at like the highest stakes 3-mans or heads ups or whatever, you're usually going to find these 3 or 4 guys, including me, in there. But I got just this last weekend, I got challenged to a number of $530 heads ups by a guy I'd never heard of before. So there's still action.
Dude, I can't believe that they capped that. I mean, it'd be awesome if you could fire out like some 5Ks or something, just see if someone would grab them.
I
But
saw Empire Maker talking about esports on Twitter the other day. I was going to try to lure him, lure Empire Maker over there.
yeah, man, that's a good way to get the following going. Just attack Empire Maker, man.
Yeah, there we go.
That's got to be a great way to get some action. I won't name any names, but I do know some people that in preseason NFL specifically will go after some of these higher stakes guys, just hoping that they'll send them some games or at least accept their games. So that's an interesting one. The third tip I have for League of Legends on DraftKings is different ways to avoid overlap. Buddha was asking, how do you avoid trading rake and that small game selection? And I think that's a problem with a lot of the niche sports that we're attacking. Even if you do get the action, it's a lot of the regulars from that point. So like in NBA in particular, like there's really no point in attacking some of these regulars in the higher stakes cash games if you're just only going to get like a 1v1, 2v2. So do you end up trading a bunch of rake? Like what's kind of your experience so far?
It's even worse actually with League than a lot of other sports.
Okay.
I would highly recommend, if you think you've got a good grasp on this, to just block the other regulars and put up head-to-heads
Sure.
and just hope that you can get action from other people, because the way that you build lineups in League of Legends, players who win their games are always worth significantly more than players that lose. So when you're constructing lineups, especially on a small slate, there's a high chance you'll chop with somebody else if you both have the same ideas of who's going to win.
Sure.
Because you just want to be stacking teams that are going to win. So if we're looking at a 2-game slate, A versus B, C versus D, me and you both think that A and C are going to win, it's a pretty high chance our lineups are going to be either the same or extremely similar. They're going to have 4 players from Team A, 3 players from Team C.
If you want to take your game to that next level, I do offer one-on-one coaching. If you want to invest in yourself, it's a really big deal. And if you want to try and get involved in the group coaching that I have for NFL, that's going to be new this year. So a little bit more information at joeholka.com/coaching if you want to hear more about it. But if you prefer just to continue to learn this group setting here on YouTube, totally fine. A lot of people don't realize, though, that all the live streams are on Twitch. So if you have an Amazon Prime account, you automatically have access to a free Twitch Prime subscription. Of course, you can still watch for free, but if you already have Amazon Prime, you might as well take advantage of the subscriber-only perks. You get access to our premium Discord chat as well. So throw me to follow, twitch.tv/JoeHolka, so you don't miss anything over there. The fourth tip I have for League of Legends on DraftKings is that pay attention to who is joining these teams. A lot of them, just like in any other sport, there's a cancer in the locker room, can really bring the entire team down. Talked on WNBA how like really digging into news, digging into social media, like to get an edge on if these guys are sick, if they're what, like is there any sort of news aspect, I guess, to League of Legends?
There definitely is.
Really?
For a weird thing, well, for one thing, in Korea and China, they use a lot of backups, and one of the biggest things is you need to know who is actually starting today. And
Nice.
those are not announced like on any main website the way they are for like basketball. The only way to know those, specifically for China, we used to. Now it's a little bit easier. The league Twitter account posts them now, but back in the day, we used to have to go on Chinese Twitter and translate tweets to try to figure out who was playing. That's relevant. But the other thing is, it's a weird thing with League versus like the NBA. Guys that are 18, 19 coming into the NBA have been playing organized sports their whole life. They've been listening to a coach their whole life.
Sure.
Some of them get like, kind of bad attitudes or whatever, but League players are way worse because they're guys that for the most part have just been sitting in their, basement playing League of Legends for the last 10 years. For the most part, they didn't have a coach. They were probably 16 or 17 when they started to think about going pro. So knowing the players, which players are having turmoil can actually be pretty valuable, especially within teams. There's a couple guys, especially in North America, who are known to just be like basically locker room cancers for League of Legends, which people probably wouldn't think this.
That's hilarious. So it's like almost like the modern day Leroy Jenkins, right? So like those videos, like that's like my biggest, I think, I guess, interaction with like Warcraft and that sort of thing was that one Leroy Jenkins video. So is there like guys that just like go off on their own page? Like if they do it, I assume that's like really detrimental to their team.
It's really a lot about people usually try to follow their team's game plan, but it's a lot about blaming their teammates. You'll catch on Twitter like, oh, I thought I had a pretty good game, but my mid laner is struggling a lot. And they start each other. I see in the chat, Dudes mentions Dardock. That's an example of one of the guys that's known as a real
Okay.
cancer. Every team he's been on is, even if he performs well, he ends up getting kicked off within like 2 months because he's just always raging out and blaming people and
Dude,
knowing
that's
that kind of stuff. When you can, this is an example of how to use that in DFS.
mhm.
So last season in the spring, Dardock's team was just crushing at the beginning of the year. And I said on Twitter a couple times, as soon as they lose a game, they're going to start losing a bunch of games. And so they lost their first game or two, and then you could just see their teamwork just break down because they have all these cancerous players in the team that are getting mad and blaming everyone else. So I started betting on them. As soon as they lost their first game, I started betting against them over and over and over again. Made a lot of money that way.
Yeah, that's funny, man. Dudes is so happy this stream's happening. Me too, man. I think this is going to be more popular than a couple of the other niche sports. I'm actually like pumped that we have John here for this. The fifth tip I have for League of Legends on DraftKings is not to worry too much about cheating. Even at some of these really big esports events, there's constantly someone walking around to make sure that everything's above board. Has there ever been like cheating? Like, is there even a way to cheat in League? Like, I guess like hacking in any way to like make their, I guess, skills better? Like, does that stuff ever happen or not really?
There's not, at least I've never heard of a program. I have heard of some that you could maybe use in solo queue, like when you're playing by yourself. But if you look at the way the LCS is played, it's kind of similar to like, could Tom Brady insert a robot arm on himself during the middle of a game? It's like there's a bunch of referees standing around when they play League. There's a bunch of refs standing around watching their computers. They're all in the same room. It'd be near impossible to have anything on your computer that worked like that. Even in Counter-Strike, which is what he was referencing, that there was some cheating scandals.
Yeah.
Those cheating scandals have only ever really happened in really small regions where there's not a bunch of tournament organizers and referees watching every game. Could Tom Brady deflate a football? Yeah, I suppose maybe he could. I don't know.
Yeah. Buddha, thanks for the gifted sub, man. I'm sure A Bizzle appreciates that. Yeah, so I guess there's a way to cheat and everything for sure. Yeah, I remember hearing about the wall hacks in Counter-Strike. I never really played myself, but that's something that I remember people talking about. Tip number 6 for League of Legends on DraftKings is that we should be taking a look at these team records if we really want to get an idea of how good a team is. Even just the Vegas lines, they say a lot, but that's one part of it that a lot of people probably don't do enough of. So you mentioned it's so important to actually figure out which team is going to win. Like, what kind of factors are you looking at that actually like help you determine that?
Well, I mean, that's pretty much the same as any other sport. If you don't know what you're doing or know that much about the players, you want to figure out who's going to win, just look at their records. I mean, it's the same as any other sport, you know. If the Warriors are 10-1 and the Lakers are 1-10, probably the Warriors are going to win. So
yeah, exactly.
If you don't know much, that's the easiest way to look at it.
Yeah.
The other thing is to start figuring out which teams have superstar players and finding opposing teams that have weaknesses at that point. Like, one of the best ways to predict underdog victories is by finding a team that has, like, say, a superstar 80 carry playing against a team that has a very weak 80 carry. Okay. Even if the other team's is better in general, they might be able to push through an advantage from that one position. Always appreciate my Amazon crew. So if you've been using one of the links in the description below just to do your day-to-day shopping on Amazon, I truly appreciate it. It makes a big difference to me. If you use my link to go to the site, it doesn't matter what you buy at that point. For those of you that don't know, it just does your part to kind of support what I'm doing here and keep things going with this channel. So appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to you soon. The 7th tip I have for you guys for League of Legends on DraftKings is that watching the games online can actually really help and give you a big edge. Yeah, you can definitely gain an edge from watching just levels of dominance and victories and how they played out. The stats will tell you some of the story. They can tell you a lot of the story, and you can figure some things out there. But there's definitely already been a couple scenarios this season where I watched a game and was really impressed with the team in a loss and let me pick them up the next season. Whereas if I wasn't watching the games, I might have just been like, they lost 2 of their last 2 games. They're probably pretty bad. But you can be impressed with a team in a loss for sure. So I think watching definitely can help you.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that for sure. It seems like there's a little bit of feel aspect to it, which is kind of nice for you who's so I guess so into a lot of the kind of intricacies of this. So that's super interesting. League of Legends tip number 9. We're going to talk a little bit about prop bets, betting in general. This is one of those other sports that undercover is just generating a ton of volume on the betting side as well. So let's touch on betting quickly since we've got a little bit more time. So like, how do you go about betting this? Are you essentially betting money lines like any other sport? Is it prop bets? Give me the betting take, I guess.
There are props. You can bet money lines. You can bet spreads too. But the way the spread works in League of Legends is the spread is number of games. So if they're playing like the only spread you ever really see is in a best of 3 series, one team might be minus 1.5. So
Okay.
you're essentially betting on them to not let their opponent win a game. Or in a best of 5, you might see minus 2.5. Uh, yeah, their odds are the same way as every other game. You can bet props. There's like who's going to get the first kill, basically, who's going to take down the first piece of their opponent's base, who's going to kill that Baron, that jungle guy, who's going to kill him first. Live betting is a thing, as Buddha mentioned there. You can bet live.
Is there a
I
big edge
actually
in betting it live, like getting a feel for how the game started, etc.?
Not as much with League of Legends because they tend to lock the bets a lot when the games are live. But with Counter Strike, if anybody, we're not on that subject, but if anybody ever wants to get into Counter Strike, live betting is hugely valuable there.
Nice. That's all. Let's talk a little bit about some of the other things you can bet on then. If it is, since we've touched on league a bunch, like what are some of these? Like what's one of the bigger edges you think as far as the sports betting side of things, and which kind of games should we be looking at?
If you want a really easy system that will make you money in the long term for betting, here's what I would do. In Counter Strike, you have to actually watch in order for this to happen, though. But for Counter Strike, when a team wins the first round in a game of Counter Strike, they almost always win the next 2 rounds.
Okay.
Just an easy thing for your followers here. When a team wins 3 rounds in a row, all the odds sites will live bet and make them the favorites, no
Got
matter
it.
who they are. And so one of the easiest ways to make money in Counter Strike is find a team who was a favorite before the game started and then lost the first round. And if they
Got it.
lose the first round, then they're going to change them to the underdog, and you can just smash a bet in there, and they can come back a huge percentage of the time.
The overall landscape, and is there an edge? I think so. So Buddha was saying there might be kind of a limited ceiling with the contest and other sport. So do you think that this is a sport that will continue to grow from a DFS perspective? I think that one of the best things about it would be them expanding to some other games. But what's like the best case scenario you see for the DraftKings side of things?
Yeah, I don't think League DraftKings can get immensely bigger than it is now. It can get a little bit bigger, but he's completely right in that the number of combinations on a lot of slates isn't that big for good lineups. So once people start getting better and better, the number of viable lineups, there's not enough of them. You're going to see a lot of ties. I've already had like the $100 GPP. I've split that 5 ways a bunch of times, and it's only like 20 players.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can split that 5 ways even out of 20 people. I do think other games like Counter-Strike have a potential to be significantly bigger. There's more variance in how people score in those games. It's not the same as League where all the people on a team usually score pretty similarly.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a future for esports DFS, I think. I'm not sure that League really has a chance to get huge. I'd like them to add larger contests. That would be cool.
If you're still not convinced, maybe you're just not a League of Legends fan, the 10th tip that I have for you guys as far as esports on DraftKings is that it's possible that other games down the line will be a much better fit. If you want to learn more about how to become a profitable daily fantasy sports player and how to get better at betting, start now by hitting that subscribe icon in the bottom right-hand corner so you don't miss anything. Have a ton of DFS courses, not just League of Legends, of course, on demand here on YouTube for free. So be sure and check those out. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.